Done. We're officially on. Yeah, I was just saying before I hit record that I was, for those of you listening, I was tucked at the back of our church a few weeks ago, and I was told there was a good looking surfer coming into town, and he had a little bit to share it, mate. I was sitting up the back, and as much as I wish I could claim that I had any ability on a surfboard, I haven't put in enough work to be able to match it. But to hear from a bloke who can surf or skate for that matter, I would take either of you, is always super inspiring to me. But you're back in town for a little while now. I know you said you're up on the Gold Coast, but you seem to, while you're back in Australia, be dancing all over the place.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, home base in Caloundra on the Sunshine Coast, and then yeah, currently on the Gold Coast, doing some training and just having a really intense block of that. So yeah, I'm here on the Gold Coast until like Wednesday next week, and then head home and have a couple of days to kind of just rest and re-energize and hang with the family and pack, and then off again. So yeah, a week and a half
How,
until I'm
how
gone.
does the training Yeah, sweet man. How does the training side of things work for you? I always wonder this with surfers. Like obviously the surfing element, you need the wind to be blowing the right direction. You need the surf to be pumping. Um, like how does it work? I've got a distance running background, so I always knew that okay, the foundation of it was you can get out and go for a run. It didn't matter about conditions; you were free to get out and do it. But then obviously there was a whole heap of elements, like you had strength and conditioning, you had flexibility, then it was diet, recovery, things like sleep. How do you sort of structure it from a professional standpoint? What does the week look like for you?
Oh, it's pretty funny. Like this week's been pretty unorganized. Just coaches and stuff like trying to organize stuff. It's pretty funny actually. When I'm at home and like with the guys up at home, I feel like I'm a bit more organized with it all. Like at this day, I'm training at this time, surfing at this time. But yeah, it's been pretty relaxed down here. Yeah, kind of just been going for a surf and yeah, working with my coach in the morning, working on technique and yeah, just working on getting the turns that I'll be using at certain locations as good as I can. So yeah, like I'll be heading to Portugal to Ericeira, and it's kind of a usually a bit of a bigger, kind of almost fatter right point on a reef break. So yeah, just trying to like kind of get my linking turns really good and just making sure that I'm like really having high impact on the sections that I do get. So yeah, just training on that. And then you're going into the gym most days as well. Some days it's trying to obviously have a good session, like yeah, working on strength and stuff. And then the other day is a bit sore and stuff, so just kind of having a recovery session. So yeah, it's nice. And then I've also been catching up with a nutritionist and sports psych today, and yeah, kind of just catching up with the whole team while I'm down here. So it's tapping into all the different avenues of obviously what kind of goes into having good performances while traveling. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a lot of fun and really busy, and yeah, it's there's so much more that goes into it than just like going to the gym and doing that and surfing. Like it's a lot broader than that now. Like it used to be like surfing was one of those sports that was just like so crazy, such a laid back culture, and now it's like, you know, like everyone surfs incredible. The talent's there, and it's just whoever's working the hardest. So yeah, got to have that as well. So yeah.
dude, I was sitting at a cafe at Barwon Heads yesterday on the corner, and I saw this like 1970s blue forward rocking past with like a board that looked like it was from the same era, and the bloke looked like he hadn't changed his uniform or his outfit or whatever since about the late 70s. And I was like, that's how I recognize surfing. Like I got interested in it from a spectator point of view, just from the Endless Summer. Do you remember that?
Oh
I
yeah.
watched that documentary when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and it was just it seemed as though it was from a time where everything was a little more untouched. And in terms of anything else that these guys were doing, there was no talk of diet, there was no talk of gym, there was no talk of psychology. Yeah, so it's interesting to hear that it's. I mean, it's no surprise to me either because I watched the. I know there's so many documentaries, so I'm blanking on the name. There's a great little series put together about Kelly Slater that came out for free on YouTube last year or 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and just delving into the work that he was doing, like everything you just mentioned, but then also like some of the underwater running and stuff,
Yeah.
the breath work. that he was doing. It seems just to tick every box. From like a strength perspective, is it sort of Pilates oriented or is it weight? Because you guys are all relatively thin, but you get the shirt
Yeah.
off or you pull that wetsuit off and you go, okay, they're clearly lifting something.
Yeah, no, like for me, it's like a lot of strength and conditioning. So doing weights, squats, deadlifts, so sometimes bench press and stuff. But like it's just a whole combination of that as well as mobility and I didn't used to be so big on cardio, but just a small bit of cardio at the end to just be able to have that kind of longevity when you're doing events and being able to surf a couple of hits in a day as well. So yeah, it's really just a bunch of everything. And so yeah, but like definitely for me, like I see that the strength and lifting weights is pretty important, and like all the guys that I'm kind of traveling and surfing and competing against are all lifting weights. Like there'd be only a couple that wouldn't be. And yeah, like the goal isn't to get big. It's obviously just like trying to get the muscle in the right proportion, and yeah, just trying to be like nice and healthy, but like kind of yeah, not bulky. You want to stay like kind of slim, because yeah, surfing isn't a sport where you need to be massive. You want to be able to be nimble and fast and yeah, fast twitch, and so that's something that working on constantly. But yeah, like for me, like going for aerials and trying to do those big maneuvers, having strong legs and being able to like kind of lift the weights kind of just obviously helps prevent injuries as well for that. So just making sure that you having high impact when you're doing them, minimizing the risk of injuries, and so that's what's pretty important like for the weightlifting kind of aspect of that training.
Yeah, it's so wild. I've been having so much fun going through your Instagram and watching some of those aerials because I don't know what you're like when you delve into a sport that you haven't really spent that much time watching before, and you see someone who's well and truly on their way to doing it professionally. You go, all right, there's something I didn't even know these moves were a possibility. Is that like a so obviously the styles of surfing that certain surfers bring to the game are going to be very different, but in the like to use my own reference point of running, you've got 100-meter sprinters who are not going to dominate over 1500, and then you got the 1500 who are not going to dominate over the 100. Like, is what you're doing on the wave a very sort of white blood cell type, like a speed based kind of maneuver? And how does that vary to other competitors? Like, obviously, that's um, a real notch in your belt what you bring into the aerial game. But in terms of how people combat that or approach that or surf against that, what are you seeing people bring out at the moment? Because it seems as though there's no shortage of options of different tricks, and I mean it's just so wild, man. I don't even have the vocabulary because I'm not in the surfing world enough. But I hope that attempt at a question makes sense.
Yeah, no. It's pretty funny. Like there's guys that might not have kind of the quite explosive maneuvers and stuff, but like they're just so good mentally, and it's something I've actually been kind of talking with my coach and the sports psych is just like getting that job done. They're just incredible at going out. Um, Depending on who they're versing and what the other person actually does, they just go out and just do that much better. Like doesn't have to be surfing out of the skin or doing anything crazy. They just get the job done. And so they're so smart with their decisions, and they make sure that they're on the best waves. And so that's kind of the side of surfing that can almost combat kind of the highly explosive, because sometimes you just might not be on, and so like you can get smaller waves or not be in the right position to be able to do that explosive surfing. So those just they're so consistent at being on the good waves, and so because they're doing that, it means that they've just got a better chance of getting higher scores. And so that's something that like I'm trying to work on, is like still be able to get the job done, as well as have the explosive side to my surfing, so that if I am surfing a person that's super consistent and just gets the job done, if they get the job done, if I get the job done, but it's like neck and neck and like super tight, then I've got that extra bit to go as well with the explosive side as well. Um, and so yeah, you have a couple guys on tour that just get the job done every time, and they've been able to stay there for a while, and do so well actually. And one that comes to mind is Ace Buchan. Like he was there for years, and like he didn't win a world title. He did win a couple of events, but like he was just so consistent. He'd get quarters or kind of around that, and so he was on tour for so long, and so yeah, people kind of realize that that's something that you have to be able to work on, and it's something I'm working on still. So yeah, just trying to be that
Yeah.
consistent and be on the good waves to be able to do good surfing, but then also hopefully be able to bring that explosive surfing as well.
Yeah. So how many days a week are you in the gym?
Um, Varies a little bit, but like a usual week could be like 3 to 4 times. So yeah, I usually do like Monday, Tuesday, a little rest on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday. So, but traveling, it's a little bit different. Try and do some stuff in the road, and yeah, like in an apartment or something like that. So it probably goes down to like 2 to 3.
Yeah. So are you balancing those sessions? I know you mentioned strength and mobility, but with the sessions that you do, are you incorporating both of those sort of fitness focuses into each session? Or is it like your Mondays, your strength, your Tuesdays, your mobility?
I'd say for the most part, it is combined into the one session. But like since being home this time, like I've kind of just been like kind of feeling my body's telling me like you're just absolutely drained, really low energy, and so it's actually been this time that I've had at home. I've been like, okay, this session's strength, and then the next session's just mobility and recovery. So I've broken it up a little bit more, and yeah, just given my body a bit longer to be able to recover from the previous session. So where usually I'd be doing a bit of strength in every session. So yeah, just kind of being able to feel out the body and be able to kind of notice the signs and stuff that it's kind of telling me. So being adaptable to that as well.
Yeah, I used to have a coach. He used to always say that the training programs were written in pencil. And the
Yeah.
reason he said that was because exactly what you just mentioned, like, especially the distance running world, it's a very, I don't know if it's the same. You guys always strike me as laid back when you're sitting on the beach. And then you get out to the waves. I'm like, these guys aren't laid back at all. Like, these are terrifying, these are terrifying creatures. Um, but it's interesting just hearing that approach because the idea of a surfer being malleable and a bit more flexible with their training, it just makes sense. It seems to suit the image. Whereas distance runners seem very obsessive, very um, just black and white. But the good athletes, the top athletes, it seems to be universal, regardless of what sport you're looking at, have this ability to go, okay, well, I'm clearly tired from the week that just was, or the session that I had. I'll adapt and adjust. So essentially, you've got a core standard that you're trying to hit each week, like with a certain amount of strength sessions, mobility, surfs, I imagine. And it's just a matter of listening to your body as to when you actually implement each of those. So it might not be a Tuesday, you might switch it up to a Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's something that I've kind of been working on as well. Like travel. Obviously, you can't really do too much at airports or in cars and stuff, and so yeah, just really being flexible. And so yeah, sometimes I train on the weekend if I've just haven't been able to get to it in the week. Try and have that weekend separate so that I can just have those 2 days rest. But sometimes I've had that rest in the week, and it's like okay. I had that day off and I need to do it on the weekend now. So yeah, being really flexible. And it's something that is so important in surfing because like you go to a contest and it's not a set schedule. And so yeah, like you can rock up and you've got a week period, but you rock up in the morning and then making a call, and so you just don't know if you're surfing or if you're resting, and so yeah, as a surfer, just that flexibility and being able to kind of just cruise with it and go with emotions is really important. And so obviously it kind of comes into training as well.
Yeah, yeah. I guess there's only so much you can do to control what you like. No matter how frustrated you get, you're not controlling the swell. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of waiting it out. I watched a great documentary last night, dude. If you haven't seen it, it's called The Alpinist. It's
Yeah.
on Netflix. It's about this Canadian climber. I won't give too much away because it had such a hectic ending.
Yeah.
Uh, but essentially, he's going out and free soloing some of the just most
Yeah.
treacherous mountains.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest factors that he had to navigate, like you look at the guy and he's fit, he's ripped, he had
Mm.
the most laid back attitude. Perhaps it's no surprise because the one thing which was a constant in any climb was just listening to the weather. He goes, no matter how much he wanted to climb, if the weather was off, it'd be a death wish for me to get out there.
Yeah.
So I, it's almost a similar scene in some regards from a like psychology perspective. I look at and I've watched so many of the documentaries about these like Alex Honnold figures, these free
Mhm.
soloers, and these elite level surfers. There seems to be like a weird combination of intensity and laid back. And I get that from I don't know how well you know Callie Slater, but he's the surfer like anyone who's not in the surf world that I'm
Yeah.
probably most familiar with. And
Yeah.
he seems like when he's ready to surf, he's one of the most intense characters, but he's just general day to day philosophy and approach to life seems really weird. It's an interesting combination. Is that something that um like do those sort of personality standpoints stand out to you from the surf world?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. Yeah, it's actually pretty funny. I heard a story of like with footy and torn or like Friday night games and stuff. Like sometimes I heard this one story of I don't know who it was or where, but like what the field just got flooded out, and so they had to postpone it like a couple days. And so like they have their set schedule of like even their eating, like they eat this on one day and the next to like obviously be in peak performance on that day. And so then they were just completely thrown out because it got postponed a couple of days. They're like, oh, what do we do? Like, we've already started this, like eating and stuff and the schedule. And then it was just completely thrown out. So they were like, just completely at a loss of what to do and how to change and adapt. But yeah, surfers, like, it's a thing that, like, in a heat, like, you paddle out and conditions can just change like that. Like you can be watching it for 2 hours before and be like, that's exactly where I need to go sit, and then you paddle out, and it just changes, and it's at a different spot. So it's definitely at like just a level of all surfers kind of have that, where they're just always trying to adapt and be the fastest one to adapt as well, and so that's 100% why Kelly's been so incredible and he's won so many world titles is because he was just the best at adjusting as quickly as he could. Um, and like there's heats and stories of him like being comboed and like there's like 5 minutes left and he just gets one incredible wave and then he paddles out and gets the next one exactly in the time that was left. And so yeah, like just that being able to adapt and be able to persevere through like change and yeah, being able to just adapt to different conditions and yeah, it's pretty incredible and makes it such a tough sport, but also just such a rewarding sport as well to be in.
Yeah, I often wonder that. I was driving past Ocean Grove a few days ago, which is the local beach down here, and it looked flat. The weather was nice. I thought, as a surfer, especially a beginner, it'd be nice to get out there. But from a professional standpoint, there's obviously a certain amount of surf you need to get in on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. But I guess it's sort of on par with what we're talking about here. How do you navigate that? Say if you have a week or two where it's just rubbish. Are you at that level now where you're just traveling around to make sure you get the surfs in? Because from a competition perspective, it'd always be playing in my mind like, I bet it's awesome surf in Portugal right now, and I know I'll be versing whoever it is that I'm up against at the next competition. How do you navigate that frustration of, okay, there's nothing you can do about it, but you really want to be out there working on whatever it is that you're practicing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's another one of those things where you just kind of seeing how you're feeling. Like if you're just like set on training and surfing no matter what, then yeah, it's a lot of what goes into a heat is obviously just your mindset, and so you can go out and practice that even if the waves are terrible. Like conditions can be nothing like what you're going to be surfing in the competition. Like you could be going out at a beach break that's 1 foot and still almost practicing like kind of the mindset and tactics. Um, that you'll want to be using at like a massive reef break that is completely different to what you're practicing in, but you can still just work on your mind and tactics and stuff. So it's there's, even though you might not be kind of practicing in the conditions that you'd be surfing and competing in, like there's just so many ways to continue to train and push through. And something I learnt pretty young was from the sunny coast, not too many waves, pretty inconsistent, pretty small. And so just being able to kind of be motivated to even keep surfing through that was just something that I've really been thankful for. And being able to continue to have that while I travel, and that motivation to kind of keep surfing and keep training even when conditions or things aren't kind of going quite exactly as you want. Like just that just makes such a big difference. And so just having that mindset, and like sometimes you just might not be feeling it and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get frustrated, or like probably just going to be focused on the wrong things instead of focused on actually kind of, task orientated things while you're surfing. So you're like, okay, like I just need to back out from that, and not kind of worry about that session, because you could just see it might not be or might be unfruitful, instead of actually pushing you closer to the goal of competing well. But I had a really good session this morning. Actually, I've been really tired and just low energy. And so like I went out, had a free surf, got warmed up, had a couple really good waves, and then went back out, had like a 25-minute heat with some others. And pretty much just like caught 4 waves. All were terrible. And I was just like focused on like being so tired, and was focused on those things, and it drew me to just having a terrible performance, and came in and talked to the coach and the sports psych, and was just like, man, I'm just so tired. Like, I just don't know if I can like do this. And then they were like, all right, like, they didn't want me to finish on that bad note. So like, oh, like, even though you're tired, I reckon you could just do 15 more minutes and like just see if you can just come back up and bring that performance back up. And like they were like, okay, like what do you need to focus on to get away from focusing on the negative, and just have a task in mind that you just completely focused on and fully committed to as well. And so just went back out. I was like, all right, I just need to be busy. I need to catch heaps of waves, because that's something I wasn't doing in the previous heat. And instantly just lifted performance. And like, even though I was really tired and just kind of just felt like it sucked, like just continuing to go, all right, where's my next wave? Where's my next opportunity? That kept me from focusing on being tired and negative. And just instantly was having more fun and finding better waves, and the performance just instantly kind of went up. It was pretty incredible to kind of have that experience. And I mean, I've had that before, but just always kind of having those sessions just reminds you of how resilient you can be. And you're not always going to be healthy when you're competing. You might have a cold or a flu, and so just having these kind of under the belt and being like, okay, like, if I do go travel to an event and I'm not feeling great, I'm tired or I'm sick, like just having this and being like, okay, I've got a couple tools. Like I tried to kind of amp myself up before going out, was doing a lot of breathing and stuff. And that just instantly just lifted the performance. And so being able to have that just is pretty awesome and incredible.
That's one lesson that I've learned over and over again, is
Yeah.
how many times you can be in a frustrating situation and change the way you look at a situation, and all of a sudden just your whole experience is flipped on its head. And it's incredible how quickly that change can take place. And one thing that I love about so many of the top athletes that I love watching is they can have, like we all have from time to time, a terrible performance one week. And one standout feature of these athletes, especially those that I love, like a Novak Djokovic is a great example, is they can have that absolute stinker of a performance. And so many athletes with sort of a less developed, mental routine or mindset or whatever you want to call it, might linger in that for a few weeks or months and just waste so many valuable opportunities. But if Djokovic can go out from a tournament that he got belted in from someone who was, it's not usually someone who's unseeded, and then come out and win a huge tournament the following week. And it's no, I don't know. I think it's so inspiring or so motivating based on the fact that it's so easy to linger, especially when your emotions kick in and you start to feel negative about it. You start to beat yourself up and look at everything that's going wrong. Even what you said, I thought was cool. Was like, where do you need to be? Where's your next opportunity? Because even those questions, like that's one thing I used to listen to Tony Robbins about, and he used to speak regularly about how the questions that you ask yourself often dictate what it is that you see. Like your brain's just
Yeah.
wired in a way to answer the questions that you ask it. And
Yeah.
if the question is like, oh, why am I so tired? And why is it my performance not where it could be? It's so easy for your brain to justify it, isn't it? So what kind of things are you working through with your sports psychologist in that situation?
Yeah, just like making sure that my focus is in the right space. I caught up with him yesterday. It was so funny just the way that like the session that we had yesterday and the things we were talking about just worked so perfectly into the session this morning. Yeah, like just obviously, um, yeah, just having that kind of making sure everything's good with yourself, but then just being able to go, okay, like with the waves, with the conditions, can I get the job done? And so, like, how do you do that? And it's like, where's your focus? Is it on the task at hand and what you need to be doing, or is it on things that are distracting you and pulling you away from that? And so, yeah, like that just clearly was seen this morning. Like, first heat just was so distracted with things that I shouldn't have been. And, it just led to me just sitting out the back and not catching waves. And when I did catch a wave, just surfing it terribly. And then came in and just refocused and kind of gave myself that thing that I was to focus on. And it was just catch waves, kind of don't stop moving, just keep moving and catching waves and keep looking for the next wave and opportunity. And so, yeah, just where your focus is dictates so much of what opportunities you'll actually provide for yourself. Like as soon as I started hunting and really looking for those waves, they just came to me where like the previous heat, I was just focused almost internally and not actually at the waves. And it meant that like no opportunities were coming to me. And so, yeah, having that and then also just like making sure that like for the conditions, you like the task that you have set is one that's going to help bring out the good performance. So this morning it was real junky waves and not a lot of good waves and really hard to find. And so it was just get busy, keep catching waves. Whereas somewhere else, like a long point break or just a reef break or something, you might be like, okay, no, I need to sit and wait for the right wave to come because you could go a really bad one and then you've got a really long paddle back all the way out and you might miss the best one that comes through. So yeah, just making sure that like the task and focus that you have is the right one as well for the right conditions and context. So that was something that we'd been talking about yesterday and then just really working on today. So it was really cool.
This is a conversation we often have in the stand-up comedy world as well, because obviously the big audience is the one you want. That's the one where people have paid to go out to stand-up comedy, to watch a show, to laugh. That's often where the easiest laughs come. But one of the biggest challenges to a stand-up comedian in that particular situation, when you're not big enough just to be doing clubs or theaters anywhere that you are, you've got to go out and do open mic.
Yeah.
And open mic comedy is one of the most brutal scenes because a lot of the time you're there, you're interrupting people who are having dinner, who are just trying to catch up, have a couple of drinks, had no idea that there was comedy going on, and you're walking into what appears to be terrible conditions. But the conversation around, and you mentioned it earlier about how going into an average break or an average set of conditions can be frustrating for some people. But when you go into it with an idea of what it is that you're trying to develop, you're still going with a certain level of intensity.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that, yeah, I often find myself in as well. Like if I'm at an open mic room and there's 7 people there and you're going, like they didn't even want to be there. But there's certain skill sets that have to be developed there. But there's I don't know if this is a conversation with you guys. In every other industry, there appears to be like a point of diminishing returns. Like it's not the person who runs the most who's necessarily the fastest. It's not the person who does the most gigs who's necessarily the fastest. I can imagine it's not the person who surfs the most, because I know a bloke, Frank, down here who surfs twice a day whenever he can, and he's not winning any competitions. It's just a social thing. It seems to be this unique combination of so many skill sets coming in to make each person in each industry the best in that particular field. But I say all that to say, when you get out there and you see now an average set of conditions, I guess the first response is still like, oh, damn, like this sucks. But all of a sudden, with that focus factor that you were mentioning before, it becomes a really cool opportunity rather than just a wasted session, which is how so often, comedians at around my level will see that open mic experience. They go, oh, what a waste of a night. And you can kind of read it in the body language and everything that they don't want to be there. The audience doesn't want to be there. And it just makes it a little bit of it just seems like a real waste.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was even something that I didn't really talk too much about with the coach or the psych this morning, but like when I first rocked up, I was seeing these waves and I got super excited and had this expectation of what the waves were going to be like when I went out, and whether it changed or, it just looked a lot better from the beach than when you're out there. Like I had the higher expectation than what I should have. And so like when I went out for the first free surf, like just I'd started off poorly because I was like, I need these waves that I was seeing and I just couldn't find them. And so halfway through that free surf, I was like, okay, like I think I got too excited and thought these waves were going to be the ones that I was going to get. I need to just kind of step back a little bit and maybe just bring the level of expectation down a bit and be like, okay, the waves I'm going to be catching aren't as good as what I thought they were going to be, but let me just catch them anyway. And so then came in, ended up getting a couple really good waves at the end of the free surf, and so that probably almost brought my expectation back up. Like I was like, oh, I got a couple of sick ones, like that was great. And so then was like kind of going back out to the heat, going, yeah, I just got some really fun ones. Like I'm gonna find those ones again. And then went back out and just couldn't find them again because maybe I'd kind of gotten a bit excited again and put that expectation of kind of expecting the performance of myself and the waves as well to be a lot better than what they were. And so then came in, had the terrible first heat, and then just had completely like no expectations for the next heat. Just was absolutely smashed after that first one, and was like, all right, like if I can just surf this next heat, like I'll be stoked. And so just had really low expectations again. And so I feel like that makes a big difference as well. Like you don't want to go out there expecting that you're going to perform at your highest every time, like because you're human, you can't do that. You're going to have ups and downs and kind of worm like going up and down. So you just got to realize that and never have expectations too high, because that just leads to disappointment. And so just making sure that you have realistic expectations of what you're kind of going into, and that's kind of sounds like what you can have with open mic. Like you can have expectations of wanting to do really well and it be that really big crowd, and it just might not be that. And so just having that realistic expectation of performance and the waves that you're going to be catching. And so that was something else that I was kind of dealing with this morning as well, just going out there and bringing the expectations down, because I got excited and was like really sad and just like kind of had dashed those expectations, and then just kind of figuring that out as well.
It's so wild how much the emotional factor can play such a big part in performance, and like with some of the competitions that I've seen you've been competing at with the crowds that are standing on the beach, and when the surf's looking unbelievable, you must have that feeling of, oh my gosh, like this is an absolute dream, like this is the best, I can't wait to get out there. But then the flip side of that is sort of like what you're explaining this morning. You have those opportunities or those sessions where there might not be that many people out there watching you. The surf's not that good. It's not a huge competition. Are you the kind of surfer that like does your performance rise according to the size of the competition that you're in? Because I often see again in every sport, whether it's football, tennis, basketball, whatever, there's certain teams or certain athletes that they, when they need to be good, they're on. And it's sort of like that Djokovic example I gave earlier. They can come out of a relatively small tournament and get beaten or almost get beaten, and then come out the next week and look unstoppable. And you go, okay, well, surely form hasn't really. He's not any fitter. He's not any more or less skillful than he was this time last week. It's purely that mental factor. But it seems to be something about certain competitions that raises an athlete to a new level. Like, do you, if you're sitting back and trying to reflect on a session a little more logically without the emotion involved, can you see an improvement in your performance when the competition is a sort of there's a bit more on risk, a bit more at edge? Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, for sure. No,
A bit more on the line, I think, is the
yeah,
expression I'm looking for.
yeah, yeah. Even like the last event that I did do was the US Open and at Huntington Beach, and would arguably be one of the biggest like event site kind of setups on the World Surf League. Obviously, you've kind of got Trestles where the finals is. It just ran like a week ago or something like that. That would be probably one of the biggest turn ups of people, but probably the biggest setup of like scaffolding and events. Like, yeah, they had Nitro Circus on at the same time as surfing, and it's almost like a circus. It's pretty incredible. And so you know, there is that almost extra pressure and excitement and buzz at that event. And you do get really big crowds, and I've competed there quite a few times, and I've done pretty well, because I find I kind of feed off that energy and really enjoy that, trying to be an entertainer, um, and having that crowd on the beach, kind of getting them kind of cheering for you and really psyching you up. And so it's such a big event, and there is that pressure like that comes with that. But certain people just love that, and that's something that I've kind of found like that. I've really loved it. I've loved competing at home when I do have that home crowd and everyone's cheering for you, and you kind of feel like everyone's there expecting and really excited for you. And so I love that. And then yeah, I've had it a couple of events as well, like on the World Surf League on the championship tour. I've had a couple wild cards, and yeah, kind of times that I've been able to get in there as a low seed. And one was at D Bar. What it was supposed to be at Snapper, but there was just no sand, so they moved it there, and big crowds, and obviously the best. And yeah, it was so cool to have that vibe of just such intense, just people are frothing to see the world's best. And yeah, I feel like my level of surfing lifted to meet the other guys and the best in the world. And um, realizing that you always want to bring your best performance no matter what event you're in. And so I've had those couple experiences that way, and then I've also had a couple experiences when it has been a smaller competition that I haven't surfed as well. And I'm like, oh, what, like, why is this? And so it's just that full mindset of yeah, you kind of going into those big events, and you might have added pressure, but it's just being able to feed off people's energies and having the right mindset. And so yeah, going into those ones, I've kind of found that I've kind of gone in and been like, okay, sometimes I don't have pressure because it is such a big event, and I'm like, all right, I just want to have fun. I just want to give it my best effort. Um, where some of the smaller ones you kind of go into and be like, okay, like this is one where I feel like I should win, because it is a smaller competition. And so you kind of have that pressure that you've put on yourself, to do well, because you're like, oh, it's a smaller event, I should do better. And so, yeah, realizing that and being able to kind of take that and be like, okay, I need to have the mindset that I have at the bigger events and the higher kind of caliber with the different athletes and stuff, and have that at every single event. And so it's, yeah, creating that mindset that you bring to every competition or every performance that you want to be doing well. And so, yeah, definitely something I'm still working on. Definitely haven't got it right. And it's just always that reminding yourself before you kind of go into those tournaments, just going, okay, I want to be bringing my best. So like having the right mindset. What is that mindset? And so that's something that I found myself in 21, or no, sorry, last year 22, had the regional series, and so it was one of those kind of ones where I'm like, okay, I should be doing pretty well, even if I'm not winning the event. I'm like quarters or semis, like should be doing really well, and I just kept losing like second heat or first heat, and just like kind of kept going into almost a downward spiral. And so then I didn't do well enough to qualify for the next series, for the Challenger Series. And so then I had this time where I was like, okay, what was the problem? Why wasn't I doing well in these events where I think I should have been doing well? And so then just kind of had to come back to the mindset of I was putting too much pressure on myself, which then was inhibiting how I could perform. It meant that I was too nervous. I was having wobbly legs when I was out there, and yeah, just kind of having an expectation of performing well every single time. And so then I was able to kind of go, okay, that was the problem. How do I fix that? I kind of go into each heat and just be like, okay, doesn't matter what the end result and end performance is. I'm just going to give my best effort. So going to give 100% every single time, whether that ends up being good performance or not. And so I found that's been really helping me this year. I did well in the regional series, and then had a couple kind of missteps, just performances, just missing out by a couple points here and there, on the Challenger Series, the next one up from that one. But then, yeah, at the US Open, just kind of hit my stride again. And yeah, it was just going out each heat and just being like, all right, 100% each time. Doesn't have to look pretty or be good. I just want to give it my best. And so having that mindset's been able to help me be able to give my best, no matter how big or small event the event is.
It's so funny. It's so obvious when you explain it, isn't it? Because in the end, like we all know that the only thing that we have control over is our own performance.
Yeah,
And yet, with all these factors that come into it, another one that I find really fascinating is just, and especially, I'm not sure whether this is still a thing for you or whether you've been exposed to it for so long now that it's less of a thing. Um, when you break through a certain rank and you start to rub shoulders with the blokes that used to have stuck up on your bedroom wall, it's an overwhelming, like, holy shit, like that's Kelly Slater, or
yeah.
that's whoever it is that you're dealing with. How do you go with that? Is that a pressure to you, or is that something that it was a pressure and you navigated your way through, or where are you at in terms of that?
Yeah, I find myself lifting when I'm versing those people. I've had some hits against Gabriel Medina. Um, I don't know if I versed Kelly, but yeah, I versed some of my heroes. Yeah, Gabriel Medina, Julian Wilson, and versing those guys. I've had my best performances, when I've just been like, okay, they're the one that's supposed to win because they
Yeah.
have all the accolades, and they've like just been doing it for so much longer. They've got the experience, and they're at that high level already, and that's where I'm wanting to get. So I'm like, okay, that they've got the pressure. They should be the one that should win. But I'm just going to go out. I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to have fun, and I I I do believe that I can win. But it's just going, okay. Doesn't matter if I win or lose. I'm just going to give it my best. I'm going to have fun. And when I do that, it's usually when I do perform my best. And so like there was the one heat at D-Bar where I was against Julian Wilson. Um, and yeah, just had an incredible heat and beat him. And so yeah, it was just so much fun. I was just having so much fun that whole heat. It was awesome. And yeah, like it's something where like I did well in that event, and so then because I did well in that event, I got the call up for the next event, and then I was like, oh, like I did well in the previous event, I should do well again here, and then I've kind of crashed again because I'm like kind of putting the pressure on myself. And so I've had those kind of experiences a couple of times now where I've done well in the first event, and then second event I've kind of done not as well. Because first event I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna have fun. these guys are supposed to be doing better, and if I beat them, then sick.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter if I win or lose. And then second event, I'm like, oh, I kind of did well. I got to keep doing well. Um, and so yeah, having those experiences now, it's like, okay, just keep having fun. Don't put kind of any expectation on the result, because you're going out into the ocean where there's just so many things that you can't predict. You can obviously take into control what you're going to be doing, but the ocean is just unpredictable, and so you just, no matter how good you are, sometimes the ocean just does exactly the opposite of what you're trying to do. And so yeah, it's just kind of obviously taking into control what you can, but then letting go of the unpredictability of the ocean and being like, okay, that's in God's hands. I can just rely on doing what I need to do, and if that ends up lining up with what that happens in the ocean at the same time, then that's great. But if it goes completely against the plan of what you had, then you're like, okay, well, guess it just wasn't my time today.
Yeah.
So yeah, having those lessons has been massive for me. Um, and so even just that, like when you are reflecting on your performance at the end of the day, and you're like, okay, I had a terrible heat, and you're like, okay, well, did I give my best? Did I actually give 100%? Or did I go out there and I didn't try as hard as I could have? And it's like, if you actually give your best, even if you lost, you can be stoked with that.
Yeah.
Um, and that was something else that I learned a lot last year when I had such bad performances. I'd reflect and be like, man, that sucked. I did terribly. But yeah, just kind of going, okay, well, actually, did I give my best? And if I did, even if it ended up I didn't get through or I had a bad performance still, it's like, if I gave my best, then I can be happy with that, and I can be like, okay, sick, let me move on now. Where if you're just too focused on the result, and you're like, well, I gave my best, but I didn't get through. That sucks. Like, I needed to do this or do that. It just means that you get hung up on it, and it means you get stuck in that, and you don't have the ability to move on and actually get ready for the next event. You're just still thinking about the previous event and your loss and stuff. So that's been a massive lesson that I kind of learned last year.
Yeah. 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 How does the you mentioned that with a couple of the smaller, a couple of the less pressured situations, you've gone out and done really well, and then sometimes that second round's been a little more difficult to back it up. Is it a points based system? How does it work to get the call up into the major competitions, or are you literally just getting a call up from event organisers to say, mate, yeah, you look like you're informed to come out and party this week?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit different depending on which event. The first event that I got into, they had like a trials event. So obviously they had the main event, but then they had like a 1 day event where they had just a bunch of surfers that were on the lower series. So they had the top guys from that series, 1 day event. Whoever wins it gets into the main event. And so I'd done well enough to be in that group, and yeah, ended up having a good event on that 1 day, and winning the trials, and so then getting into the main event. And then there's been other ones more recently where the regional series for Australia, like I was leading that. I'd done well in a couple events, and so I was leading the rankings for that. And so then they had an injury on the championship tour, and so they had a spot to fill. And because the event was in Australia, they were like, all right, we'll go to the regional series, and whoever's kind of at the top of that list then gets in. So I got the call up for Margaret River early this year because I was leading the regional series rankings. So yeah, it can depend on which event sometimes. Um, and so, yeah, depending on location, I know that for the championship tour event in Tahiti, they still had a trials where the top kind of people for that region still had to do a 1 day event, and whoever won it got in. But yeah, it kind of just depends on where it is, what event you're kind of getting the call up for, to how they have that kind of selection criteria.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So what's this event that you've got coming up? I can't remember when you said you're heading to Portugal, but what is it you're surfing there, did you say?
Yeah, so heading away on the 24th of September. And yeah, it's a part of the Challenger Series, which is the one just below the Championship Tour. So yeah, heading to Portugal, and then I'll head straight from there to Brazil for the next one as well. So yeah, last two events for the year, a part of the Challenger Series, and so yeah, pretty exciting. Yeah, last two events. There'll be six in total, so these are the last two. Already had four, and so yeah, kind of last two chances to finish in that top 10. That then qualifies for the championship tour next year. So yeah, they have 10 surfers from the championship tour that fall off, and then the 10 from the Challenger Series that move up. So hoping to get into that top 10 and yeah, be able to have a year on tour next year.
Yeah, man. So you're on tour in terms of the level above where you're at the moment.
Yeah, so yeah, the next level up's the top one. So yeah, hoping
Wow,
to
dude.
get there. So yeah, pretty exciting. Like I've had five events at that top level now, but just getting through trials or getting a wild card call up. So yeah, obviously be pretty exciting to have yeah, kind of earn my spot there for kind of the year, which will be exciting.
So in terms of where you're at now, like with two events to go, is it too early to call? Like, is it looking likely that that call up will happen, or it's too unpredictable with a couple of comps left?
Yeah, pretty unpredictable. I think at the moment, there's only been one person that's confirms their qualification, and that's the person that's leading the rankings. So he's number one at the moment. Cole Houshman, he's from California, and he's done really well at the start of the year. He won two events back to back, and so at the moment, I've only had one good result, and it wasn't a win either. It was a quarterfinal, so he's winning. I'm 21st, and so I'm kind of 11 spots out from that qualification zone. And so yeah, these next two events are really critical for me. And I haven't really looked into what results exactly I need, but I'm just going into it going, okay, I obviously want to win. But yeah, if I could maybe get like another two quarterfinals, I feel like that would be pretty solid as well for getting me into that top 10. Or even like maybe not quite as good a result in one, but maybe a win in the other one. I feel like that'd be pretty good, but getting me into that top 10. So kind of just trying to obviously give my best in each event, and yeah, hopefully come out at the end of the year with being and finishing in the top 10.
Yeah. So when you're going away for these competitions, are you going away just for the extent of the competition, or are they all sort of chunked together? Because it seems that like you got one here in Victoria, you got to be in Portugal, you got to be in California, like they're Hawaii, they're all over the shop from what I can tell. So how do you sort of structure a foundation or a base for yourself throughout the year?
Yeah, it can be pretty difficult. Yeah, got to kind of see which ones are almost like this one's a bit of a leg where I go to Portugal first and then straight to Brazil. Where other ones you might just go to one place and then come home before the next event to have that time at home training and stuff. For me, like I'm like, okay, I'm pretty young. Obviously through COVID, you kind of come out of and you realize how kind of blessed you are with the opportunity. So I've been trying to make the most of that. And so the last leg I did, I went to South Africa first, and then most people came back to Australia or went to their home countries and had that time at home. Um, but I just went straight to America, which was where the next one was, and I just had that time there. I've just got some friends that just love staying with, and so just got comfortable with them and kind of started practicing early at the US Open at Huntington Beach, and yeah, just had some fun as well doing some other stuff. So yeah, it kind of just depends on what you want to be doing. Like I was still training in that time, and so then went into the US Open, did that, and then had kind of 2 months before this next one at Portugal. And so in that time, I was like, okay, I've got enough time to go home, but I've got 2 weeks that I might go to Central America and do some filming and have some fun with some friends. So I did that as well after the US Open. Um, and so yeah, it kind of just depends on what you want to be doing. And I'm just like, I'm just going to make the most of being able to be young and free and have this time to just go travel and enjoy um, checking out all these different locations and having fun with friends. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and obviously having that balance and going, okay, I need rest, need to be training, but also let's make the most of it and have fun and do some different things. So still kind of figuring that balance out a little bit, but I feel like I've been doing it pretty good this year. And so yeah, it's been pretty fun. And yeah, like the next two events, Portugal and Brazil, are pretty back to back. I think Portugal ends on the um, 8th of October, so then leave on the 9th of October to go to Brazil. And then Brazil starts on the 14th of October. So have not much time in there. So you're just going straight from one to the next, getting ready and straight into the competition mode and just getting ready and being as prepared as possible. And then I was like, okay, do I have, because that's the last event of the year, do I have a bit of, a little trip in Brazil somewhere else or something? But it's kind of, for me, I've kind of gone, okay, I did the little trip to Central America after the US Open. And, I think by that time at the end of Brazil, I'll just be ready to come home and have some family time and have a bit of time off. So decided against kind of extending the trip and just doing some fun stuff and just coming home and having that time with the family.
Yeah, and time off's time off. Does that mean like you're not training at all?
Maybe not fitness, but still just surfing. But I love having fun and surfing, and that's something else that you kind of have to be able to realize is obviously you can be training with you surfing, but you can also still just have fun. And so sometimes I'll be taking out the longboard or a fish or a different craft that you kind of just draw different lines and or like a foamy, and so you're just having fun with friends and stuff. So I love doing that kind of in those times when I'm not having to train, and I can just have fun and just be a bit carefree.
Yeah. It's pretty wild how many people you can reach as well. I love that about the skate scene as well. Is you'll often see like a mate of a skater just following him with the camera behind him, getting a sequence of tricks, and then they'll edit that, put it up on Instagram. And I don't know if you know Andy Anderson. He's an American skater dude. He's like a freestyle skater that's just he's so ridiculous to watch. He's one of those. It's like a perfect combination of professional and like an artist just blended in beautifully together. And some of the things you see him do on a skateboard, you go, I just had no idea that was an option. It's just you should have a little Instagram of him. He's unbelievable. I've even when my boy Charlie, he's 3 years old, when he's on his best behavior, I go, all right, buddy, come watch some Andy Anderson. Yeah, just as a little bit of a reward. But I say that just to say the opportunities that skaters, surfers, you seem to be in the same kind of scene that in terms of sponsorship, at least the kind of opportunity you have to get your name, your face, your product, whatever it is, in front of hundreds of thousands of people is mind blowing. And I see some of the stuff that you put online has got unbelievable traction. Like, is that a sponsorship thing, or is that just an appreciation for what it is that you're doing and cataloging that? Like, what's the idea behind posting the footage? I mean, I'm so glad you are, but I can imagine it's like a multifaceted thing.
For sure. I feel like, that's something that like almost comes back to just the culture of surfing and just being carefree and, having that adventure and seeking out waves and that the perfect surf of surfing with just a couple of your mates out in the perfect waves and being able to then document it and share it with everyone. And so it's something that I love. I love going and surfing with friends and kind of being filmed and then being able to show that to other people. And so it's obviously a side that like almost you still kind of bring a bit of competitiveness to it, but you're just having fun. And so a lot of people, they can be like, okay, I'm literally just going to focus on competitions. I'm not going to worry about filming and doing trips and stuff like that. But I want to be bringing both of that, both sides of that, to my career, and showing kind of the creative side that I have as well, and showing exactly what I am capable of. And so, I'm working on a bit of a movie at the moment, actually.
Oh wow.
That was part of the trip to some Central America, was doing some filming for that. And so, it's just bringing that creative side and being like, okay, like obviously I show who I am in the competitive scene and being like, okay, I want to be a elite athlete and I want to be, considered as one of the best surfers in the world. But this is also a part of who I am. I love going and chasing waves and having fun with friends and, this is my style of surfing that I love to do, and it doesn't have to be purely based on trying to get the best score to then win the heat and then progress and win the competition. Like I'm just doing this because I love it. And so showing that through the video is something I love doing, and it's fun just doing different projects. And I've done a couple of edits before, and so this one that I'm currently working on, trying to make it a bit longer and just trying to draw out some different sides of what I love doing. And so yeah, it's really fun to kind of have that side of yourself as well. And it definitely helps with sponsorships because results, they can be pretty fickle. Obviously, you kind of depending on what the ocean kind of serves up for you on the day. Where if you're traveling and kind of looking for those good conditions, obviously you don't need it to surf well and get good clips. So yeah, it's just a lot more fun and kind of a little bit of a longer process, kind of going on trips and filming, and sometimes you score, sometimes you don't, but it's all part of the journey. So yeah, it's a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, man. What are you doing when you're not out there surfing? What's your downtime?
Downtime. I really don't have too much downtime. But yeah, I love reading. And so yeah, do a lot of reading. Yeah, read my Bible and read fiction novels. I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan, so I read a lot of Star Wars novels. And then I actually, when I'm not surfing or doing gym and stuff, I'm also kind of looking after kind of my relationship with sponsors as well. So because I don't have a manager at the moment, yeah, kind of going around and just keeping them up to date, and yeah, letting them know what I'm doing, what I've just done, and kind of my goals and stuff. So that's pretty kind of a cool side that not every athlete, but quite a few have the manager, and so they don't have that personal kind of side of constantly dealing with their sponsors. And so yeah, it's pretty fun to have that, and just completely be able to fully show them who I am, because I'm dealing with them a lot more. And so uh, yeah, that's been pretty fun, and a definitely good experience being able to kind of learn how to talk to sponsors and be able to kind of communicate well kind of goals and expectations and stuff. So it's been a cool experience doing that as well.
Yeah, man. It must be interesting bringing the faith into the sport like surfing as well. Because from an outsider's perspective, it's just glamorous women in not much material, good looking blokes. It seems like it's got danger just written all over it.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
how do you navigate that world, man? Because it's I mean, yeah, good looking unit. It's interesting as well just to see the. It's funny what like a little bit of stardom or what do you say, like a little bit of fame can do as well. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, it adds a little bit of fuel to the fire. Like how is that whole world? Like I've targeted that very much specifically to good looking women, but what I mean more broadly than that is just in terms of the game. Like are you a little bit of an anomaly out there or
Yeah, I feel like at least like with the women that are traveling on the same events and stuff, like, um, and the guys as well. Like I'm really out there with telling everyone about my faith and just living it as well, trying to live for Jesus every day. And so they see that, and so they know my beliefs. It's not like I'm a undercover Christian. Like
yeah.
I love when I heard that. It's like, yeah, no, I want to show them who I am and what I believe. And so yeah, like the other women that are traveling on the same events and stuff, they know what I believe, and they're not they actually respect me for that, and they don't trying to do anything with me, which is really good. And it's probably just those people that are at events, that they're just there to watch and kind of yeah, they're not at each event or getting to know you, that can be a bit dangerous, or kind of have that where they just might not actually kind of respect your beliefs, or know your beliefs even, and so then they throw themselves at you or something.
Yeah.
But it's really good. I've had a really good upbringing. My mum and dad did a great job, and so have a good foundation of. I find myself reading the Bible each morning, and it just gives me, that instruction on how to avoid those situations. And so it's, also just like going, okay, I'm not going to go out partying each night. That's obviously where a lot of bad things can happen. And so, just avoid that kind of scene. And, it just kind of fleeing that and just not even putting myself in those situations makes a big difference as well. Um, and then the other thing that I've been able to do is, for quite a few years, I didn't kind of have that community or fellowship while I was traveling. And so I just felt like I was either, even if I wasn't backslide, I was just kind of staying kind of stagnant in my relationship with God. And so was just praying a lot for some guys or people that I could be just kind of having that community with, even if I was traveling. And so I've been really lucky to have some guys that I really respect. And I catch up with a pastor from Hawaii that I usually stay at the church when I'm there in Hawaii. And so I just catch up with him weekly as well. Um, and so, just having that community, just no matter where you are, has been massive for me as well. And so just having that accountability with that pastor and with people that I stay with, depending on where I go, has been also really encouraging for me as well, to just keep fighting the fight and keep fleeing or resisting that temptation. So it's been really cool to have that. And I'm really stoked and really thankful that, so far I really haven't had too much of the guys that I travel with trying to take me to parties and get me to be going with girls and stuff or doing drugs. They're really respectful. And they're kind of realizing that those kind of things are taking away from their performance as well. And so they've it's been really cool to just have that as well, that accountability with them. And they're not trying to get me to be drinking or anything. So it's really cool.
Yeah, awesome, brother. Well, dude, I got my eye on the clock. I know you got plenty more to get done in your afternoon, so I'll love you and leave you. But man, really appreciate you making the time to come on and have a chat. And dude, I'll be cheering for you. I'm hoping for the best results these next two competitions. And man, I can't wait to see you sneaking into that next level up and starting to make a real dent.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tyson. Really appreciate it. It's been
Awesome.
fun.
Yeah, right back at you. I'll see you soon.
So
See you, everybody.